The day Maya Levinson drove her dented Honda Civic into the pothole-ridden parking lot of Turner's Auto Repair with a $700 cashier's check and a secondhand toolbox, the entire mechanic community of Oakridge Valley erupted in barely concealed laughter. In this blue-collar town, where garage keys had been passed down through generations like precious heirlooms and where respect had to be earned through decades of grease-stained labor, this former marketing executive with her weekend certification course was considered nothing short of delusional. What these lifetime mechanics didn't realize was that their greatest mistake wasn't questioning her technical abilities. It would be underestimating what she wouldn't find beneath the shop floor. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The faded storefronts of Oakridge Valley's repair district stretched along Riverside Road like weary sentinels, their weather-beaten signs and rusted fixtures telling stories of more prosperous decades. Once a thriving manufacturing hub, the small Midwestern town had struggled since the closure of the Westfield Manufacturing Plant 15 years earlier, leaving behind a community of skilled workers watching their livelihoods slowly dissolve. Among the businesses still hanging on was a cluster of auto repair shops, with lift bays echoing with the familiar symphony of impact wrenches and air compressors from sunup to sundown. The monthly gathering of the Oakridge Valley Business Alliance was in full swing at Molly's Diner. Coffee mugs clinked against worn formica tables, while plates of Molly's famous cherry pie made rounds among the assembled shop owners. Men in well-worn work shirts with embroidered name patches sat alongside women in practical attire, all discussing the same concerns they'd faced for years: dwindling population, increasing operational costs, and the looming spectre of the Ridgewood Mall expansion threatening to siphon away what little business remained. Frank Rodriguez, whose family had operated Rodriguez Auto Services for 3 generations, held court in the corner booth. At 62, his powerful forearms and permanently oil-stained fingernails spoke of a lifetime devoted to engines and transmissions. The Rodriguez name was synonymous with dependability in Oakridge Valley, their blue and yellow sign a fixture on Riverside Road since 1958. Turner finally threw in the towel on that shop of his, Frank remarked to the small group gathered around. His booth closed the doors last week after struggling for 4 years now. About time, nodded Harriet Powell, who ran the local parts supply store that her father had established after returning from Vietnam. Her family had been supplying parts to Oakridge Valley's mechanics for over 50 years. That building's been falling apart since the flood of '18. Turner never recovered after his back surgery. Poor man couldn't even lift a torque wrench anymore. "Who in their right mind would want that money pit?" asked Tom Burnside, whose towing service had been rescuing stranded motorists from county roads since the 1980s. "Place needs everything. New lifts, new diagnostics, new roof. You're looking at $100,000 minimum before you could service a single vehicle in there." Before Frank could respond, David Chen, who owned the newly opened EV specialty shop on the edge of town, joined the conversation. "Someone already bought it," he said, lowering his voice slightly. "Came in yesterday asking about diagnostic equipment suppliers and credit accounts with parts distributors. Some woman who's never owned a shop before." A ripple of disbelief spread through the group. Turner's Auto Repair had been limping along for years, its outdated equipment and deteriorating building making it increasingly difficult to service modern vehicles. The county inspector had cited the property 4 times in the past year alone for various violations, and rumors about black mold in the customer waiting area had further diminished its already questionable appeal. A woman, Frank's wife, Carmen, raised an eyebrow as she slid into the booth beside him. Carmen handled the books for Rodriguez Auto Services and knew better than most how razor-thin the margins had become in the repair business. What's she planning to do with it? Carmen asked, her accounting mind already calculating the financial impossibility of making that location profitable. General repair shop, apparently, David replied, stirring his coffee. Said something about customer-centered diagnostics and transparent pricing structures. Had some online certification from a virtual mechanic program. Kept talking about demystifying car repair for the average person. Tom Burnside gave a derisive snort. Demystifying? You mean undercutting? Bet she'll be offering $19. 99 oil changes to poach customers and then upselling unnecessary repairs, like those chain places. That's if she can even get the place operational, Harriet added. Turner's equipment was ancient. That hydraulic lift hasn't been certified in years, and the compressor system sounds like it's about to explode every time it cycles. Did you hear what she paid for it? Asked Carmen, always practical about financial matters. Turner was asking $25,000 last I heard, which was already a steal considering the property value alone. $700, David said, his expression clearly communicating his disbelief. Turner practically gave it away. His kids just wanted to settle his debts and move on. 700? Frank repeated, nearly choking on his coffee. The diagnostic scanner alone is worth more than that, even if it is 10 years outdated. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. She's got a kid with her too, David continued. Teenage daughter who looked thoroughly embarrassed to be there. No husband in sight. Frank shook his head. That place needs at least $120,000 in equipment investment, just to handle basic repairs on newer models. The computer systems alone for European vehicles would cost $15,000. The shop management software, another $5,000. Not to mention the lift certifications, environmental compliance for the waste oil, updating the electrical system. Carmen nodded in agreement. I give her till the first major repair job, she declared, with the confidence of someone who had watched many businesses come and go over the decades. Remember that guy from Chicago who tried to open that performance tuning shop back in 20? Lasted 8 weeks before the EPA violations shut him down. The conversation might have continued. In this vein, had the diner's bell not chimed, signaling a new arrival. The door swung open, admitting a gust of crisp autumn air and the very last person any of them expected to see at a gathering of established Oakridge Valley business owners. Maya Levinson stood in the doorway, scanning the room with determined, ember eyes. At 38, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had weathered significant storms. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and while her clothes were clearly new, dark work pants, a navy button-up shirt with subtle pinstripes, and steel-toed boots that hadn't yet acquired the characteristic scuffs of daily use, there was nothing pretentious about her appearance. Beside her stood a teenager around 16, with her mother's heart-shaped face and determined chin, but with teal-tipped black hair that made her stand out in the conservative town. The girl clutched a tablet computer, her expression hovering between supportive and mortified at being dragged to this gathering of adults. The pair paused momentarily, taking in the room full of strangers who had suddenly gone quiet at their entrance. Frank and Carmen exchanged glances. Harriet Powell cleared her throat. David Chen studied his coffee cup with sudden interest. Maya took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and walked directly toward the group of business owners who had just been discussing her imminent failure. The teenager followed reluctantly, a half-step behind. "Good evening," Maya said as she approached, her voice carrying a hint of a southern accent, but projecting a confidence that belied her newcomer status. "I'm Maya Levinson, the new owner of what used to be Turner's Auto Repair." She extended her hand to Frank, who seemed to be the center of the group. "And you are?" Frank hesitated only briefly before shaking her hand. His calloused palm dwarfed her smaller one, but her grip was firm and steady. Frank Rodriguez. My shop's about a quarter-mile west of yours on Riverside. Rodriguez Auto Services, Maya nodded. The transmission specialists. I noticed your 5-bay setup yesterday. Impressive operation. Something flickered in Frank's expression, perhaps surprise that she had already been observing neighboring businesses, or that she correctly identified his specialty. This is my wife, Carmen, he said, gesturing to the woman beside him. She manages our finances. Pleasure to meet you, Carmen said, her tone professional but cool. Her eyes traveled to the teenager standing slightly behind Maya. And this is your daughter. This is Lily, Maya said, resting her hand lightly on the girl's shoulder. She's my chief technology officer. Lily, these are the Rodriguezes. They run one of the established shops in town. Lily stepped forward with surprising poise, despite her obvious discomfort. Nice to meet you, Mr. and Mrs. Rodriguez. Do you use Ultra Repair Pro for your service tracking, or are you still using the older Mitchell system? Mum's trying to decide which platform to implement. The unexpected technical question from a teal-haired teenager momentarily silenced the group. It was Harriet Powell who recovered first, her expression a mixture of surprise and skepticism. Young lady, running an auto shop involves a lot more than picking software, she said. That Turner place hasn't passed a safety inspection in years. Your mother's bought herself quite the project. Rather than appearing embarrassed, Lily tapped something on her tablet. We know the building failed its last safety inspection due to outdated electrical panels and insufficient ventilation in the parts storage area. But the building inspector we consulted said the foundation and main structure are solid. Most of the issues are cosmetic or involve outdated systems that we're planning to upgrade anyway. Harriet's mouth opened and closed without producing words. David Chen leaned forward with increased interest. I'm David Chen, he said, extending his hand to Maya. Chen EV Specialists on the North End. Opened last year. Of course, Maya nodded. You've got the DC fast charging station. Smart investment with where the market's heading. You know something about electric vehicles? David asked, his eyebrows rising slightly. I know something about market trends, Maya replied. I spent the last 12 years in marketing for a renewable energy company. The EV transition is following a similar adoption curve to what we saw with solar panels in residential markets. Early resistance, followed by exponential growth once infrastructure and financing options catch up. Something in her tone, the precise market assessment without pretension, seemed to catch David off guard. I've been watching the EV space for 8 years now, he said, a hint of pride breaking through his initial skepticism. Started with traditional mechanics, transitioned to hybrids, now focusing on full electric. That kind of adaptability is crucial these days. That kind of knowledge is invaluable, Maya agreed. I hope you won't mind if I consult with you occasionally. The EV space is evolving quickly, and I want to make sure we're equipped to handle the basics, at least for the models common in this area. Before David could respond, Tom Burnside interjected. We heard you paid $700 for the whole operation. Quite a bargain for someone with no experience in the business. The question was pointed, almost challenging, but Maya didn't flinch. Mr. Turner's children were more interested in resolving the situation quickly than maximizing profit, she replied. And yes, the price reflected the condition of the property and the outstanding violations that need to be addressed. That's a far cry from being ready to actually service vehicles, Frank observed, though his tone had lost some of its earlier dismissiveness. You're absolutely right, Maya acknowledged with a frankness that seemed to surprise them. Which is why I've spent the last 6 months taking certification courses and working under master mechanic Sarah Johnson in Louisville. I'm not claiming to have the decades of experience everyone in this room has, but I'm not coming into this completely blind either. May I ask why? Carmen inquired, genuine curiosity breaking through her reserve. Why leave whatever career? You had to take on a failing auto shop in a town where you don't know anyone. Maya glanced at her daughter before answering. When Greenfield Energy Solutions was bought out by a multinational corporation last year, my division was eliminated in the restructuring. At first it seemed like a disaster, but then I started thinking about what I really wanted for Lily and myself. She looked around at the community of business owners who had gathered for generations. My mother ran a small garage in Tennessee. I grew up helping her, learning the basics alongside my homework. When she passed away 8 years ago, her shop was sold to a national chain that doubled the prices and halved the quality. I always regretted not having the confidence to keep it going. There was a sincerity in her words that was difficult to dismiss, a genuine connection to the work that transcended business calculations. Lily and I have been living in apartments her whole life. I wanted her to have roots somewhere, to understand what it means to build something tangible and be part of a community. When I saw the listing for Turner's shop at that price, it felt like a second chance. Noble sentiments, Tom said, his voice still skeptical. But auto repair isn't a hobby or a lifestyle choice for most of us. It's our livelihood, and it's harder than most outsiders imagine. The diagnostics alone on newer models require constant updating and training. I don't doubt that for a moment, Maya replied, meeting his gaze directly. And I'm not approaching this as a hobby. I've invested everything I have into making this work. I've developed a 3-year business plan focusing on transparency, fair pricing, and gradual equipment upgrades that should make the operation financially viable. Lily reached into her shoulder bag and pulled out a folder. In fact, that's partly why we came tonight. Mum was hoping to introduce herself to the business community and also to find out if anyone might be willing to share resources occasionally until we can afford to purchase everything we need. The Turner equipment is functional but limited. Frank and Harriet exchanged glances. Equipment sharing wasn't uncommon among mechanical businesses with established relationships, but usually only between those with proven reliability and family connections. What exactly are you planning to focus on? Frank asked, his tone more businesslike now. We're starting with basic maintenance services, oil changes, brake work, and diagnostic troubleshooting, Maya explained. Areas where the barrier to entry is lower. While I continue to expand my certifications, I'm partnering with a mobile mechanic service for more complex repairs until I'm fully equipped, both in tools and expertise. Her answer revealed more thought and planning than any of them had expected. Even Tom seemed slightly less dismissive. Lily, who had been quiet during most of the exchange, added, "We're also setting up a digital customer portal so people can see their vehicles' maintenance history, upcoming service needs, and real-time repair status. Most shops in a 50-mile radius don't offer that level of transparency." "Well, Ms. Levinson," Frank said after a thoughtful pause, "I've got a pre-2019 OBD scanner that we upgraded from last year. Still works fine for older models. You're welcome to borrow it until you get your diagnostic equipment sorted out." It wasn't an effusive welcome, but it was a practical gesture, of the kind mechanics understood, a willingness to help a neighbor, even one they weren't convinced would succeed. "Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez," Maya said, recognizing the significance of the offer. "I appreciate that more than I can say." "Call me Frank," he replied with a nod. "Everyone does." Carmen, watching the exchange, seemed to come to a decision. "Have you folks eaten yet? Molly makes a mean cherry pie, and you should meet the rest of the business community if you're going to be staying." The qualification, "if you're going to be staying," revealed that Carmen, like the others, still had her doubts, but the invitation itself was a small opening, a crack in the wall of skepticism. "We'd like that," Maya said with a genuine smile. "Wouldn't we, Lily? Lily nodded, though her enthusiasm seemed tempered by teenage restraint. The prospect of food and potentially finding allies in this new town clearly appealed to her despite her earlier reluctance. As Carmen led them toward an empty table, the group of business owners watched with mixed expressions. None of them believed that Maya Levinson would still be in business when the winter holidays arrived. Her plans sounded good in theory, but they had all seen the harsh realities of the repair business destroy better-prepared operations than hers. Yet something about her direct manner and evident preparation left them feeling slightly less certain of her failure than they had been before meeting her. She was clearly no dilettante playing at being a mechanic. Whether that would be enough remained to be seen. $20 says she's gone by Thanksgiving, Tom murmured to David as they watched. Maya introduced herself to the hardware store owner. David considered this, watching as Maya listened intently to Molly describing the diner's delivery van problems, her notepad now in her hand. "I don't know," David said slowly. "There's something about her. I'm not saying she'll succeed, mind you, but I'm not betting against her either." Frank, overhearing them, said nothing, but he made a mental note to check his storage unit for other equipment that might be useful for a shop getting started on a shoestring budget, just in case. 2 weeks after the Business Alliance meeting, Maya stood in the center bay of her newly pressure-washed shop floor, squinting at the sunlight streaming through windows that hadn't been clean in years. The building around her was still a work in progress. Fresh paint on the customer waiting area, new LED lighting in the service bays, but the roof still leaked in the corner when it rained heavily, and the ancient air compressor made alarming noises when it built up pressure. Like everything else in the former Turner's auto repair, it required far more work than she had initially estimated. She consulted the building inspection report that had arrived yesterday, confirming what she had suspected: the electrical system would need a complete overhaul before she could install the modern diagnostic equipment she'd need to service newer vehicles. The cost would be nearly $14,000 she hadn't budgeted for. Another setback in a growing list. The sound of an approaching vehicle drew Maya's attention. A mud-splattered pickup truck with Powell Auto Parts emblazoned on the door pulled into her freshly swept parking lot, Harriet Powell at the wheel. Maya took a deep breath before walking over to meet her. Though their initial encounter had been civil, Harriet represented the established business community that still viewed her with skepticism. "Morning, Ms. Levinson," Harriet said as she climbed out of the truck. Her tone was professionally polite, but carried an undercurrent of doubt that hadn't diminished since their first meeting. "Got your order of filters and basic inventory. Had to special order those reusable air filters you wanted. Not much demand for eco-friendly options around here." "I appreciate you going to the trouble," Maya replied, watching as Harriet lowered the truck's tailgate to unload the boxes. Harriet gestured toward the building. "I see you've been busy. Got some of that electrical work started?" "Just the preliminary rewiring in the customer area," Maya confirmed. "The main service bay upgrades will have to wait until I've built up some operating capital." The inspector wasn't thrilled, but he agreed to a phased compliance plan. "Heard you hired the Parker kid to help with the computers and phone system." Maya nodded. "Dylan's been a godsend. Computer engineering major home for the summer. He's setting up our digital vehicle tracking system while he's here." "Dylan's a good kid," Harriet agreed. "But running a repair business is a lot more than fancy software and clean windows." She shook her head as she surveyed the property. Turner ran this place with 2 experienced mechanics and still couldn't make it work. Turner was trying to run a traditional full-service repair shop in a building that needed $200,000 in upgrades. Maya said carefully, "I'm taking a different approach." Harriet frowned. Turner serviced cars in this town for 35 years. His father before him. They knew what they were doing. "I'm sure they did," Maya said evenly, But times have changed. Modern vehicles, digital diagnostics, customer expectations. The economics of repair work are different now. Maybe in your fancy business plans, Harriet replied, her voice hardening. But here in the real world, trying to run a repair shop without the proper equipment and experienced staff is asking for trouble. First major diagnostic error, first comeback, first warranty issue, you'll be underwater fast. Maya had heard variations of this warning from nearly everyone she'd met in Oakridge Valley. The persistent skepticism was wearing, but she kept her expression neutral. That's why we're starting with basic services and transparent pricing, and why I've installed that customer communication system, she explained. People appreciate knowing exactly what's happening with their vehicles. Before Harriet could respond, Lily emerged from the office, tablet in hand and wireless earbuds in one ear. Mom, the website is live, and I've set up the appointment scheduling system. Want to see the analytics dashboard? I'll be right there, honey, Maya called back. Harriet watched the exchange with a mixture of amusement and something harder to define. Your daughter seems to be taking to the business. Lily's always been tech-savvy, Maya replied with a smile. She's already keeping better track of our digital marketing than I could. As if to prove her point, Lily approached and handed Harriet a professionally designed business card. Our grand opening is next Saturday. We're offering free vehicle safety inspections and basic maintenance assessments. The QR code links to our online scheduling system. Harriet accepted the card with a bemused expression. Well, aren't you the little marketing director? Actually, I'm the digital operations manager, Lily replied matter-of-factly. I've been analyzing the local search trends. Did you know that honest mechanic near me is one of the most common automotive searches? In this county, there's clearly demand for transparent service. Harriet glanced at Maya with newfound curiosity. You're teaching her a lot about business. She's teaching me too, Maya admitted. Lily's digital skills have been invaluable. I couldn't have built our online presence without her. As if summoned by the conversation, Dylan Parker emerged from the back office, his face alight with excitement. Ms. Levinson, the server setup is complete and the diagnostic interface is working with the tablets. We can now track vehicle status in real time from anywhere in the shop. The pride in his voice brought a smile to Maya's face, despite her fatigue and worries. Harriet looked from the enthusiastic college student to Lily's confident expression to Maya's determined stance. Something shifted in her demeanor. Not approval exactly, but perhaps a grudging recognition that Maya's commitment went beyond what she had expected. Well, you better get a proper invoice system set up then, she said, reaching into her truck and pulling out a small box. These were headed for recycling, but sounds like you might have use for them. She handed Dylan a package of specialized thermal printer paper for service receipts. Dylan accepted the gift with gratitude. Thanks, Ms. Powell. This is perfect for the mobile printer system. Just don't expect those fancy computer systems to replace actual mechanical knowledge, Harriet added, unable to resist one more skeptical comment. People around here know what good service looks like. Actually, Maya interjected, we've already had inquiries from summer residents about European vehicle maintenance. They're willing to drive from their lake houses because the nearest certified service center is over an hour away. Harriet's expression clouded. Summer people, that's your market, not year-round locals. Both, ideally, Maya explained. The seasonal customers help with cash flow, but I'm committed to providing affordable service for the community. That's why our pricing is tiered. Premium service for specialty vehicles, standard rates for regular maintenance. Don't hold your breath on winning over the locals, Harriet scoffed. They've been going to Frank and the other established shops for generations. She climbed back into her truck, her face set in skeptical lines. Good luck with your fancy software and summer customers, Ms. Levinson. You'll need it when winter comes and they all disappear back to Chicago. Maya watched her drive away, the dust from her tires settling on the freshly painted curb stops. Each day brought similar interactions, moments of connection undermined by deep skepticism, small kindnesses followed by dismissive predictions of her failure. "Don't worry, Mom," Lily said, seeing the tension in Maya's shoulders. "Mr. Chen from the EV shop said the same thing last week, and then he ended up giving us access to his technical database." Maya smiled at her perceptive daughter. "You're right. Actions speak louder than words around here, and our actions are going to build the best auto shop ever," Dylan declared, with the absolute confidence only a 19-year-old could muster. Together, they walked back toward the office, but Maya paused as she caught sight of an unfamiliar car, slowing as it passed their property. The driver, a middle-aged woman in business attire, seemed to be taking notes as she drove by. "Who's that?" Lily asked, following her mother's gaze. "I don't know," Maya replied, an uneasy feeling settling in her stomach. It was the fourth such car this week, people who were clearly not locals, showing unusual interest in the former Turner's auto repair. Later that afternoon, as Maya struggled to organize the chaotic parts inventory system she'd inherited, she heard the crunch of tires on gravel again. Looking up, she recognized Frank Rodriguez's service truck. Unlike Harriet, Frank had been true to his word about lending equipment, though his help always came with plenty of advice and warnings. "Afternoon, Maya," he called as he climbed out of the truck. In the 2 weeks since the Alliance meeting, they had progressed to first names, a small but significant sign of acceptance. "Saw you wrestling with that old brake lathe earlier. Thought you might need a hand." "Thanks, Frank," Maya said gratefully, wiping sweat from her forehead and inadvertently leaving a streak of grease. "But I think I've got it figured out. The calibration mechanism just needed cleaning." Frank looked impressed despite himself. "You know your way around brake equipment?" "My mother taught me the basics," Maya explained. "She specialized in brake work before computerized alignment systems took over. Some principles never change." Frank nodded appreciatively. "Useful skills, but I actually came by to warn you about something." Maya tensed. "What's wrong?" "Been hearing rumors at Molly's diner," Frank said, lowering his voice though there was no one else around. "Riverfront Development Group has been asking questions about properties in the industrial district. David Chen said a representative approached him last week about selling his property." "Riverfront Development Group?" Maya repeated, a chill running through her that had nothing to do with the air conditioning she'd just repaired. "The commercial real estate developers." Frank nodded grimly. "They've been buying up riverside properties all along this stretch, consolidating them for mixed-use developments. Word is, they're looking to transform this whole district into some kind of riverside village concept with boutique shops and luxury condos." "And they're interested in my property?" Maya asked, pieces falling into place, the mysterious cars, the strangers taking notes. "Can't say for certain," Frank replied, "but that Turner building has the best location in the district, sits on the corner lot with river views from the second floor. That's valuable to a development operation." Maya felt sick. She had invested everything she had, financially and emotionally, into this fresh start. "They can't force me to sell." "No," Frank agreed, "but they can make it mighty uncomfortable to refuse. They've been known to buy surrounding properties and then create problems for holdouts, restricting access, filing nuisance complaints, that sort of thing." He hesitated before adding, "Some folks around here might see selling to RDG as a good thing. They pay above market value, and the development would bring different kinds of jobs. Not everyone shares your vision of keeping the industrial district as a working riverside." The implication was clear. Maya might find herself even more isolated if development interests divided the community. It was yet another challenge she hadn't anticipated. "Thanks for the warning," she said, straightening her shoulders. "But I didn't come this far to give up at the first sign of pressure." Frank studied her for a long moment before a slow smile spread across his weathered face. "Didn't figure you for a quitter. Just wanted you to know what you might be up against." As he turned to leave, he added, "By the way, Carmen wanted me to ask if you and Lily would like to come to dinner this weekend. Nothing fancy, just grilled chicken and whatever's fresh from the farmer's market. She wants to hear more about that customer communication system you mentioned. Could be useful for our shop, too." The invitation caught Maya by surprise. It was the first social overture any of the established business families had extended. "We'd like that very much," she said, trying not to sound as touched as she felt. Frank nodded. 6 o'clock Saturday, then, and Maya might want to bring that business plan of yours. I know some folks who might be interested in your approach to the summer resident market. Could be there's something to your strategy, different as it is. After he drove away, Maya stood in the middle of her fledgling repair shop, the freshly organized tools, the newly painted service bays, the digital displays showing no appointments yet, and felt the full weight of the challenges ahead: equipment limitations, community skepticism, development pressure. But then she heard Lily's laugh from the office as she worked with Dylan on their website, and she remembered why she had taken this risk in the first place. Not just to build a sustainable business, but to give her daughter roots, purpose, and the satisfaction of creating something meaningful together. The grand opening of Levinson Auto Service exceeded all of Maya's modest expectations. The free safety inspections brought in a steady stream of curious locals, many openly skeptical, but unable to resist a free service. Lily's social media campaign had attracted summer residents with European vehicles, drawn by the promise of certified service without the long drive to the city. By the end of the day, they had booked 18 appointments for the coming week and received cautiously positive feedback on their transparent pricing structure. "Not bad for day one," Frank acknowledged, when he stopped by late in the afternoon, though the real test comes when you start doing actual repair work. "I know," Maya agreed, "but at least people are willing to give us a chance." As promising as the public launch had been, it was what happened after hours that would change everything. Maya was in the rear storage room trying to organize the chaotic inventory system she'd inherited when she noticed something odd about the floor near the back wall. A section of the concrete had a slightly different coloration, forming a rough square about 4 feet across. "That's strange," she muttered, kneeling to examine it more closely. The variation was subtle, only visible when the light hit it at a certain angle. She ran her hand across the surface, feeling a barely perceptible seam. Curiosity piqued. She grabbed a flashlight from her toolbox and examined the edges more carefully. There was definitely a cut in the concrete, deliberately disguised but unmistakable to someone looking closely. One corner featured a small indentation. That might once have been a handle point. "What are you doing back here, Mom?" Lily asked, appearing in the doorway. "I thought we were getting pizza to celebrate." "Look at this," Maya said, waving her daughter over. "Does this floor section look different to you?" Lily crouched beside her mother, her expression shifting from mild annoyance to interest. "It's like a trap door or something. You think there's a storage cellar." "Turner never mentioned anything like this," Maya mused. Neither did the building inspector. They exchanged a look that mirrored each other's thoughts, a combination of caution and irresistible curiosity. Only one way to find out, Maya decided, retrieving a pry bar from her tool set. It took nearly 20 minutes of careful work to break the seal around the edges. Years of grime and possibly deliberate concealment had effectively hidden the access point. When they finally created enough leverage to lift the concrete panel, it revealed a metal hatch with an old-fashioned combination lock. "Okay, this is officially weird," Lily declared, capturing the discovery on her phone. Who puts a locked hatch under a false floor in an auto repair shop? Could be an old fallout shelter, Maya suggested, though she didn't sound convinced. This building dates back to the Cold War era. The combination lock presented another challenge, but Maya was reluctant to damage it. "Let me try something," she said, examining the mechanism. "Mr. Turner's son gave me a notebook with all his father's business information, account numbers, supplier contacts. Maybe there's something about this." The notebook, a battered ledger filled with Turner's cramped handwriting, contained mostly mundane business records. But on the inside back cover, written in faded ink, was a series of numbers with no explanation. 12 to 2436. "Worth a try," Maya muttered, turning the dial carefully. To her surprise, the lock clicked open on the first attempt. "No way," Lily breathed. "That's either incredibly lucky or seriously suspicious." Maya hesitated, suddenly aware that they might be crossing a line. "Maybe we should call someone before we go further." "Like who?" Lily countered. "The police?" "Hello, officer. We found a secret hatch in our legally purchased building and thought you should know. They'll think we're crazy." After another moment's hesitation, Maya's curiosity won out. She pulled the hatch open, revealing a metal ladder descending into darkness. The beam of her flashlight illuminated what appeared to be a concrete chamber about 8 feet below. "I'm going down," she decided. "You stay here." "Absolutely not," Lily protested. "This is exactly how horror movies start. Either we both go or neither of us goes." Maya recognized the stubborn set of her daughter's jaw, a trait she'd inherited honestly, and nodded. "Fine, but I go first, and if anything seems dangerous, we're out of there immediately." The ladder was solid despite its age, and the chamber below was surprisingly clean and dry. As Maya's flashlight swept the space, both women gasped. It wasn't a fallout shelter. It was an underground room about 15 feet square, empty except for a metal desk with a dusty rotary telephone in one corner and several filing cabinets along one wall. A series of empty metal hooks lined another wall, as if once used to hang equipment or clothing. The concrete floor was stained in places, but otherwise bare. "Mom," Lily whispered, her voice tight with uncertainty, "what is this place?" Maya shook her head, equally baffled. "I have no idea." They moved cautiously through the room. The filing cabinets were unlocked, but completely empty. Not a single paper remained. The desk drawers similarly contained nothing but dust. The rotary phone, when Maya lifted the receiver experimentally, was dead silent. "It looks like some kind of office?" Maya ventured, confused by the mundane setup. "But why underground? And why hide the entrance?" Lily had moved to the far wall and was examining some faded markings. "There's something written here. Looks like it was painted over, but you can still see the outline." Maya joined her, shining the flashlight at an angle to reveal the ghost of lettering. "Civil Defense, Auxiliary Station, Nugger 47. "Civil Defense," Maya repeated. "This must be from the 1950s or 60s, the height of the Cold War. This area probably had strategic importance because of the manufacturing plants." "So it's just an old civil defense bunker?" Lily sounded almost disappointed. "That's way less exciting than I was hoping for." Maya continued examining the space, looking for any clues to its purpose. But why would Turner hide it? And why would he keep the access locked if there's nothing down here? A thorough search of the room revealed little else. A few electrical outlets that no longer functioned, a ventilation grate covered in decades of dust, and a small sink with plumbing that had long since been disconnected. Whatever purpose the room had once served, it had been meticulously cleared out long ago. "Let's go back up," Maya finally said. "There's nothing here." As they climbed the ladder, Lily's excitement had transformed into contemplation. You know what's weird? If this was just a civil defense station, why keep it secret? Those were usually public knowledge. They'd want people to know where to go in an emergency. A good point, Maya admitted as they emerged from the hatch. Maybe it served some other purpose later, or maybe Turner just forgot it was here and sealed it up during a renovation. They carefully replaced the concrete panel, its existence somehow more puzzling now that they knew what lay beneath it, an empty room with no obvious value or purpose. "Should we tell someone about this?" Lily asked as they made their way back to the main shop area. Maya considered the question. "I'm not sure there's anything to tell. It's just an empty room from the Cold War era, not exactly breaking news." "I guess," Lily agreed reluctantly. "Still, it's kinda cool to have a secret bunker under our shop, even if it is empty." Maya smiled at her daughter's perspective. "Let's keep it between us for now. It's not hurting anything, and frankly, we have more important things to focus on, like getting ready for our first week of actual customers." The discovery of the underground room, anticlimactic as it had been, still occupied Maya's thoughts as she prepared for bed that night. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was something incongruous about the setup, an elaborately hidden entrance leading to an empty room that showed signs of having been deliberately cleared out, but with no further clues and pressing business. Concerns above ground, she filed the mystery away as a quirky footnote to their new beginning. The following morning brought a steady stream of vehicles for their first official day of business. Maya found herself immersed in the work she loved, diagnosing problems, explaining options to customers in clear language, and experiencing the satisfaction of sending people away with properly functioning vehicles. Lily managed the scheduling and customer communications with remarkable efficiency, and by the end of the day they had completed 11 service jobs with 2 vehicles scheduled for more extensive work later in the week. "We did it," Maya said, as they locked up for the night, exhausted but exhilarated. "First real day of business in the books. And look," Lily pointed to the tablet displaying their customer management system, 3 5-star reviews already. "Posted online. People actually appreciate your explain-everything approach." Maya was about to respond when she noticed a sleek black luxury SUV cruising slowly past the shop, the second time she'd seen the same vehicle that day. As it passed under the streetlight, she caught a glimpse of the driver, a sharp-featured woman in business attire who seemed to be studying their building with particular interest. "Mom?" Lily followed her gaze. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," Maya said, not wanting to worry her daughter. "Just tired. Let's go home and celebrate with ice cream." But as they drove home to their small rented house a few blocks away, Maya couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that the mysterious room beneath her shop and the sudden interest from Riverfront Development Group might be connected in ways she didn't yet understand. Frank's warning about developers targeting the district took on new significance in light of their discovery. What if there was something valuable about that underground space, something that made the property particularly desirable to developers? But her thorough inspection had revealed nothing but an empty room. If there had once been something of value there, it was long gone. Pushing aside her concerns, Maya focused on the positive, their successful first day, the growing appointment book, and the small victory of proving they could operate a professional repair service despite the community's skepticism. Whatever mysteries lay beneath the shop floor, her priority remained building a sustainable business and a stable future for Lily. Little did she know that the empty room would soon become the least of her concerns, as forces beyond her control were already converging on Oakridge Valley with plans that would threaten everything she was working to build. The morning light streamed through the newly installed blinds in the customer waiting area as Maya reviewed the previous day's service reports. Their first week of full operation had exceeded her cautious projections. 27 vehicles serviced, mostly routine maintenance, but with enough complex diagnostics to prove their capabilities to skeptical locals. The digital tracking system Lily had implemented was already proving its worth, allowing them to provide detailed reports that impressed even veteran car owners. The bell above the door chimed, announcing the arrival of their first customer of the day. Maya looked up to see an elegantly dressed woman in her 50s enter, her designer handbag and carefully coiffed silver hair marking her as one of the summer residents from the lakeside properties north of town. "Good morning," Maya greeted her with a warm smile. "Welcome to Levinson Auto Service." "Alexandra Winters," the woman introduced herself, extending a manicured hand. "I understand you can service European vehicles. My Audi has been making an unusual noise when accelerating." "We certainly can," Maya confirmed, gesturing toward the tablet on the counter. "If you'd like to fill out our digital intake form, I can take a look right away." As Mrs. Winters completed the paperwork, two more customers arrived, a young teacher with a brake issue and an elderly man whose check engine light had been mysteriously illuminating. By mid-morning, the shop was humming with activity, Lily managing the front desk communications while Maya diagnosed and repaired with focused precision. Around noon, as Maya was explaining a timing chain issue to a concerned customer, she noticed the same black luxury SUV she'd spotted earlier in the week pulling into the parking lot. This time, the sharp-featured woman in business attire emerged, carrying a leather portfolio and surveying the busy shop with calculating eyes. Maya finished with her customer before approaching the newcomer, wiping her hands on a shop towel as she crossed the service area. "Welcome to Levinson Auto Service," she said pleasantly. "How can we help you today?" "Victoria Hargrove, Riverfront Development Group," the woman replied, her smile professional but cold as she extended a business card. "I was hoping we might have a few minutes to discuss a business opportunity." The name confirmed Maya's suspicions about the vehicle she'd been seeing around the property. "I'm in the middle of a busy day," Maya replied, gesturing to the vehicles in various stages of service. "Perhaps you could come back when we're closed." "Of course," Victoria agreed smoothly. "Success looks good on you, Ms. Levinson. Not many new businesses generate this much traffic so quickly. Impressive." There was something in her tone, a hint of insinuation, that set Maya's nerves on edge. How much did this woman know about her operation? Had she been watching the shop that closely? "5 o'clock, Maya said firmly. "I can spare a few minutes then." "Perfect. I look forward to our conversation." Victoria's gaze drifted across the shop, lingering briefly on the door to the back storage area where the entrance to the underground room was hidden. "You've done wonders with this old building already." After she departed, Maya found it difficult to concentrate on her work. Victoria Hargrove's interest in the property, and possibly in what lay beneath it, added a new layer of complexity to challenges that were already testing her resources and resolve. The afternoon passed in a blur of oil changes, brake pad replacements, and diagnostic troubleshooting. At 4:30, Maya sent Lily home with Dylan, who had stopped by to help with a server upgrade. "But I want to be here when the development lady comes back," Lily protested. "I know, honey, but I'd rather handle this myself first," Maya explained. "Go with Dylan, get something to eat, and I'll fill you in later." "Promise." Reluctantly, Lily complied, though her expression made it clear she felt she was missing something important. Once they departed, Maya quickly cleaned up the service area and prepared herself for the meeting, reviewing what Frank had told her about Riverfront Development Group's tactics. Victoria Hargrove returned precisely at 5, now accompanied by a tall man in an expensive suit whose authoritative bearing suggested he was accustomed to getting his way. "Ms. Levinson, this is James Caldwell, CEO of Riverfront Development Group." Victoria introduced him as they entered the now quiet shop. "A pleasure," Caldwell said, his handshake firm and confident. "I must say you've made remarkable progress with this property in a short time. Turner let it deteriorate badly toward the end." "Thank you," Maya replied cautiously. "It's been a labor of love." "That's precisely what I admire," Caldwell smiled, though the warmth didn't reach his eyes. "Entrepreneurs who see potential where others see only problems. We share that vision, Ms. Levinson, though perhaps on different scales." He gestured toward the chairs in the waiting area. "May we sit? I believe we have a proposition that could benefit us both significantly." Maya led them to the small seating area, maintaining her composed exterior while inwardly bracing for whatever was coming. "I'll be direct," Caldwell began once they were seated. "Riverfront Development Group is planning a comprehensive riverside revitalization project for this district. Mixed-use spaces, upscale residences, boutique retail, a small marina, transforming this underutilized industrial zone into a vibrant community hub. This industrial zone provides livelihoods for dozens of families," Maya pointed out. "It's hardly underutilized." Caldwell waved a dismissive hand. "The economic impact of our development would generate 10 times the employment opportunities currently available here. Progress requires change, Ms. Levinson. And my property fits into your plans. How exactly?" Victoria opened her portfolio, revealing architectural renderings of a gleaming riverside development. "Your location is central to our master plan. The corner position and river proximity make it ideal for what would become the centerpiece of the development, a riverside. The cafe and specialty shops." "I see," Maya said carefully, "and you're approaching me because—" "We'd like to purchase your property," Caldwell stated bluntly. "We're prepared to offer $450,000, approximately 3 times its current market value, enough for you to relocate your business to a more suitable facility, perhaps in the commercial district on the north side of town, with substantial capital remaining for equipment upgrades." The figure momentarily took Maya's breath away. It was far more than she had expected, enough to solve all her financial concerns in one stroke, to build the shop she had envisioned without years of struggle. "That's a generous offer," she acknowledged, keeping her voice steady. "We believe in fair compensation," Victoria added. "Early participants in our vision receive premium consideration. Those who delay often find themselves disadvantaged by changing circumstances." The veiled threat wasn't lost on Maya. "You mentioned my property is central to your plans. Have you secured the surrounding properties yet?" A flash of something, irritation perhaps, crossed Caldwell's face before his smooth composure returned. "Several property owners have already agreed to our terms. Others are still in negotiation. The project will proceed regardless, though the timeline and certain design elements depend on full participation." Maya thought about the empty room beneath her shop, the strange circumstances of her purchasing the property for such a low price, and the peculiar intensity of their interest. Something didn't add up. "I'd need time to consider an offer of this magnitude," she said finally. "This business represents more than just a financial investment for me." "Of course," Caldwell replied, though his tight smile suggested he had expected immediate acceptance. "We understand the emotional component of business ownership. Take a few days to think it over." He handed her a business card. "Call when you're ready to discuss terms." After they departed, Maya locked the shop and sat alone in the gathering twilight, turning Caldwell's card over in her hands. The offer was tempting, a solution to all her financial challenges, a way to build the business without years of struggle. Yet something felt wrong. Their interest seemed disproportionate to the property's value, even accounting for its strategic location, and the timing, approaching her just days after she discovered the underground room, struck her as suspiciously coincidental. The dinner at Frank and Carmen Rodriguez's home that Saturday provided a welcome distraction from Maya's growing concerns. Their modest, ranch-style house was warm and inviting, filled with family photos and mementos from decades in the community. Carmen served a delicious meal of grilled chicken and fresh vegetables, while their college-age son, Michael, engaged Lily in animated conversation about the latest digital marketing trends. "So," Frank said, as they enjoyed coffee and homemade flan for dessert, "heard Riverfront made you an offer." Maya wasn't surprised that news traveled fast in Oakridge Valley. Word gets around quickly. "Small town," Carmen shrugged. "Caldwell's people have approached most of the property owners in the district. Some are considering selling." "Are you?" Maya asked directly. Frank and Carmen exchanged glances. "They offered us $600,000, Frank admitted. "Triple what the property's worth on paper." "That's substantial," Maya acknowledged. "3 generations of Rodriguez mechanics have worked that shop," Frank said, his expression hardening. "My grandfather built it with his own hands after coming to this country with nothing but the tools in his backpack. Some things you can't put a price on." Carmen nodded in agreement. "Not everyone feels the same way, though. Tom Burnside is ready to sell. Says the towing business isn't what it used to be with all the roadside assistance programs. David Chen is on the fence. The money would let him open a larger EV facility elsewhere." "Harriet Powell?" Maya asked. "Refusing to even meet with them," Frank chuckled. "Told Victoria Hargrove she'd sell her parts store when hell freezes. Over, and not a day sooner." The conversation shifted to Riverfront's development plans and their potential impact on the community. Frank and Carmen were clearly concerned about more than just their own business. They worried about the character of Oakridge Valley changing, about long-time residents being priced out by rising property values and an influx of wealthy newcomers. "By the way," Frank said as the evening wound down, "that underground room you found, Turner used it as a private office of sorts." Maya's head snapped up. "You knew about it?" Frank nodded. "Most of the old-timers did. During the Cold War, several buildings in town had civil defense stations. The manufacturing plant was considered a potential target. After the threat died down, folks repurposed the spaces. Turner used his for poker games with his buddies. Kept his private stock of bourbon down there, nothing sinister. It's completely empty now," Maya said, wondering if this explained the discrepancy between the intense interest in her property and the underwhelming discovery beneath it. "Turner's kids probably cleared it out after he passed," Carmen suggested. "They were eager to settle his affairs quickly." As they drove home that night, Maya found herself mulling over Frank's casual revelation. If the underground room was just an obsolete civil defense station later used for poker games, why would Riverfront Development be so fixated on her property specifically? Their offer was disproportionate to the property's value, even considering its corner location. The next morning, her suspicions deepened when she arrived at the shop to find signs of an attempted break-in, subtle but unmistakable marks around the back door lock, though the security system Lily had insisted on installing had apparently deterred the intruders. Maya called the local police, but the officer who responded seemed unconcerned. "Probably just kids," he suggested after a cursory examination. "No actual entry, nothing stolen. I'll note it in the report, but there's not much to go on." After he left, Maya carefully checked the storage room, relieved to find the concrete panel covering the underground room entrance undisturbed. Whatever the would-be intruders had been seeking, they hadn't gotten to it. Throughout the day, as she handled a steady stream of customers, Maya noticed the black SUV driving past twice more. Victoria Hargrove wasn't even attempting to be subtle about her surveillance. The pressure was intensifying, and Maya needed more information before she could decide how to respond. That evening, after closing, she made a decision. "I need to take another look at that underground room," she told Lily. "There has to be something we missed." "Like what?" Lily asked, equally intrigued and concerned by the day's events. "I don't know, but Riverfront's interest in this property specifically seems excessive. Their offer is way above market value." Together, they removed the concrete panel and descended into the underground chamber once more. This time, Maya conducted a more methodical search, tapping walls for hollow spaces, examining the floor for hidden compartments, even checking the ceiling for concealed access points. After an hour of fruitless investigation, Lily sat on the edge of the desk in frustration. "Mom, there's nothing here, it's just an empty room." "There has to be something," Maya insisted, running her hands along the edges of the filing cabinets. "Why else would—" She stopped abruptly as her fingers detected a slight irregularity in the wall behind the largest cabinet. "Help me move this," she urged Lily. Together, they shifted the heavy metal cabinet away from the wall, revealing a section of concrete that appeared slightly different in texture from the surrounding surface. Maya examined it carefully, then tapped it with a wrench. The sound was distinctly hollow. "There's something behind here," she breathed, excitement building. It took another 30 minutes of careful probing before they located the concealed latch mechanism. When Maya finally triggered it, a section of the wall, disguised to match the surrounding concrete, swung outward to reveal a narrow passage. "No way," Lily whispered, her eyes wide. "A secret tunnel. This is getting seriously weird, Mom." Maya shone her flashlight into the passage, revealing a rough-hewn corridor extending about 20 feet before making a sharp turn. The walls were supported by timber beams that looked decades old, but still solid. "This must connect to another building," Maya realized. "Maybe it was an emergency evacuation route for the civil defense station." "Are we going in there?" Lily asked, her voice a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Maya hesitated, weighing curiosity against caution. "Not tonight," she decided. "We don't know where it leads or what condition it's in. Let's do some research first, see if we can find out more about the civil defense network in Oakridge Valley." They carefully closed the hidden door and replaced the filing cabinet, then secured the main entrance to the underground room. As they emerged into the shop, Maya's mind was racing with possibilities. A secret tunnel connecting buildings would certainly add value to the property from a developer's perspective, perhaps explaining Riverfront's intense interest, but it still didn't seem sufficient to justify their excessive offer. The following day brought an unexpected visitor to the shop. Harriet Powell arrived shortly after opening, her expression uncharacteristically concerned. "Got a minute?" she asked Maya, glancing around to ensure they wouldn't be overheard by the single customer waiting in the reception area. "Of course." Maya led her into the small office. "What's wrong?" "Riverfront's tactics are escalating," Harriet said without preamble. "Tom Burnside signed a sale agreement yesterday. This morning David Chen found his EV charging station vandalized, cables cut, control panels smashed. Could be coincidence, but it happened right after he turned down their latest offer," Maya finished grimly. Harriet nodded. "They're playing hardball now. Thought you should know." "I appreciate the warning," Maya said, touched by Harriet's concern despite their earlier friction. "Also," Harriet hesitated, "been meaning to tell you, you're doing good work here. That Winters woman brought her Audi to my store for parts yesterday. Wouldn't stop talking about how you explained everything clearly without talking down to her. Said her regular mechanic in Chicago never bothers to explain anything." The unexpected compliment from her once skeptical colleague warmed Maya. "That means a lot, coming from you." "Yeah, well," Harriet shrugged, uncomfortable with the sentiment. "Just because I didn't think you'd make it doesn't mean I'm not glad to be wrong. We need more honest shops, not fewer." After Harriet left, Maya called Frank to share what she'd learned about the escalating pressure tactics and the vandalism at Chen's shop. His response was immediate and decisive. "Time to organize," he declared. "The property owners need to present a united front. Carmen's setting up a meeting tonight at our place, 7 p.m. Bring Lily and that business plan of yours. We're going to need everyone's best ideas to counter these people." The prospect of collective action lifted Maya's spirits. She wasn't facing this challenge alone anymore. She had allies in the community, people who shared her vision of preserving the industrial district's character and livelihoods. As she ended the call, her gaze fell on the floor, where the entrance to the underground room lay hidden. The secret tunnel they'd discovered might be important, but right now, what mattered most was protecting the business she was building above ground, the service she provided to the community, the future she was creating for herself and Lily, the legacy she was honoring from her mother. Whatever riverfront development was really after, Maya was increasingly determined not to let them have it, not without a fight that would draw on all her resources, both the determination that had carried her through past challenges and the new connections she was forming in Oakridge Valley. The empty room beneath her shop might hold no secrets, but the strength she was discovering within herself and her growing community held the power to overcome whatever obstacles lay ahead. The gathering at the Rodriguez home that evening brought together a diverse coalition of business owners from the Riverside Industrial District. Frank and Carmen had transformed their living room into an impromptu meeting space with folding chairs arranged in a semicircle and a whiteboard displaying a map of the affected properties. Beside the property map, Carmen had written "Save Our Shops" in bold red letters. Maya and Lily arrived to find the room already buzzing with conversation. Harriet Powell was engaged in intense discussion with David Chen, whose normally cheerful demeanor had been replaced by grim determination following the vandalism of his charging station. The hardware store owners, the Patel family, sat quietly reviewing documents, while the elderly couple who ran the local machine shop compared notes with the young woman who had recently opened a custom furniture business in the district. "Quite a turnout," Maya observed as Frank greeted them at the door. "Word travels fast when there's a threat," he replied. "Everyone here has been approached by Riverfront. Some have already refused, others are on the fence, but they all want more information before making final decisions." Carmen guided them to seats near the front as Frank called the meeting to order. "Thanks for coming, everyone. Most of you know why we're here. Riverfront Development Group is trying to buy up the entire Riverside district for their luxury condo project. They started with generous offers, but now they're resorting to pressure tactics." David Chen stood, his expression tense. "They destroyed $15,000 worth of equipment at my shop last night. Can't prove it was them, of course, but the timing is suspicious, right after I declined their third offer." Murmurs of concern rippled through the group. "My landlord's threatening to triple my rent," added the young furniture maker. "Found out this morning he's been negotiating with Riverfront behind the scenes." Similar stories emerged from around the room. Subtle threats, unexpected building code complaints, mysterious service interruptions. The pattern was clear. Riverfront was systematically increasing pressure on holdouts. "They're offering well, above market value," noted Mr. Patel, the hardware store owner. "My family has run our store for 30 years, but with my arthritis getting worse and my son at college." His voice trailed off, but his dilemma was evident. "That's why we're here," Frank said. "Everyone has to make their own decision, but those decisions should be based on complete information and a clear understanding of what's at stake." He gestured to Maya. "Ms. Levinson has some information that might help us understand what Riverfront is really after." Maya, taking a deep breath, Maya moved to the front of the room. She had wrestled with how much to share about her discovery beneath the shop, but had ultimately decided transparency with her allies was essential. As some of, I purchased Turner's Auto Repair for $700 last month. Since then, Riverfront has shown unusual interest in my property, surveillance, attempted break-ins, and an offer of $450,000, which is far above market value, even for a corner lot. She paused, noting the surprised expressions at the amount. Mentioned, initially I couldn't understand their fixation on my property specifically. Then I discovered something unusual, an underground room beneath the shop floor. Maya described finding the concealed entrance and the empty civil defense station, carefully gauging the reactions of the long-time residents. Several nodded knowingly when she mentioned Turner's poker games, confirming Frank's explanation. What Riverfront doesn't know is that last night we discovered something else, a hidden tunnel leading from this underground room. She described finding the concealed passage and her suspicion that it connected to other buildings in the district. Based on what I've learned about civil defense preparations during the Cold War, I believe there may be an entire network of underground connections between buildings in this district, passages that would allow movement between properties without going outside. The revelation caused a stir. Some attendees looked skeptical, others intrigued, and a few, particularly the older business owners, exchanged knowing glances. Harriet Powell stood up. Turner wasn't the only one with an underground space. The original section of my parts store has one too, used it for storage until the dampness became a problem. Never found any tunnels, though. The machine shop has one as well, confirmed Mr. Delaney, the elderly owner. Just a concrete room under the main floor. Always figured it was for taking shelter during air raids. As more business owners shared similar discoveries, a pattern emerged. Nearly half the buildings in the industrial district had underground spaces dating back to the Cold War era. Here's my theory, Maya continued. Riverfront knows about these underground spaces and the tunnels connecting them. Their development plan isn't just about luxury condos. They want what's beneath our properties. The question is, why? What makes these old civil defense rooms so valuable to them? The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. Finally, Carmen spoke up. The river, she said simply. During the manufacturing boom, there were concerns about industrial waste contaminating the water. The county installed monitoring systems in some of the underground spaces closest to the riverbank. Those systems included access tunnels for maintenance. Frank nodded. That makes sense. Riverfront's plans include a marina and riverside restaurants. They'd need to ensure there are no lingering contamination issues and control access to any monitoring data. Or, David Chen suggested, they already know about contamination issues and want to control the evidence before building luxury properties. Environmental cleanup would cut into their profits significantly. Maya considered these possibilities. Both made logical sense, but neither seemed sufficient to justify the extreme measures Riverfront was taking or the exorbitant offers they were making. Whatever their motivation, she said, I believe we need to investigate further before more properties change hands. These underground spaces are part of our community's history and infrastructure. If Riverfront wants them so badly, we should at least understand why. For the next 2 hours, the group formulated a strategy. They would pool resources to hire an environmental consultant to test for contamination around the properties. They would research property records and historical documents about the civil defense network. Most importantly, they would present a united front in dealings with Riverfront, sharing information and supporting each other against pressure tactics. As the meeting concluded, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. The empty room beneath her shop might hold no secrets itself, but it had become the catalyst for bringing the community together in common cause. "Thank you for starting this," Frank told her as people began to depart. "Most of us have been here so long we'd gotten complacent, taken our businesses and this district for granted. Sometimes it takes a newcomer's perspective to make us appreciate what we have." The sentiment touched Maya deeply. From skeptical outsider to community organizer in just a few weeks, it wasn't the path she had expected, but it validated her decision to start over in Oakridge Valley. The following morning, Maya arrived at her shop early, determined to explore the tunnel before opening hours. Lily insisted on accompanying her, armed with a powerful flashlight, a digital camera, and boundless curiosity. "I've been thinking," Lily said as they descended into the underground room. "If these tunnels connect multiple buildings, they could be super useful even now. Imagine being able to move parts or tools between shops during bad weather or having emergency evacuation routes." "That's actually a great point," Maya acknowledged, impressed by her daughter's practical thinking. "These passages might be valuable infrastructure for the district businesses, not just historical curiosities." They opened the concealed door and ventured into the narrow tunnel, finding it in better condition than expected. The timber supports showed no signs of rot, and the air, though stale, was not damp. Their flashlight beams revealed boot prints in the dust, evidence that someone had used the passage relatively recently. After 20 feet, the tunnel made a sharp right turn and continued for another 30 feet before ending at a similar concealed door. Working together, they located the internal latch mechanism and carefully opened it, revealing another underground room. This one beneath what Maya calculated would be the building adjacent to hers, currently vacant but formerly a small welding shop. Unlike the empty space beneath her own shop, this room contained equipment. Old monitoring devices with faded government labels, gauges connected to pipes that disappeared into the walls, and a metal desk with maps and technical diagrams spread across its surface. "Whoa!" Lily whispered, photographing everything. "This looks like something from a spy movie." Maya examined the equipment carefully. "These are monitoring devices. For water quality, I think. See how these pipes are labeled with river depth measurements?" The maps on the desk showed the Riverside district with marked locations that corresponded to buildings with underground rooms. Lines between certain locations matched what Maya now suspected were tunnel connections. Most intriguingly, several of the maps had recent notations in different handwriting than the original labels. Someone had been updating this information. "Mom, look at this," Lily called from the corner of the room where she was examining a modern laptop connected to some of the older equipment. "This is definitely not from the Cold War era." The laptop was password protected, but a notebook beside it contained what appeared to be technical readings, dated entries with measurements and coded annotations. The most recent entry was from just 3 weeks ago. "Someone's been actively monitoring something here," Maya said, photographing the notebook pages, "recently and secretly." They continued their exploration, discovering that this room connected to yet another tunnel leading in a different direction. However, a quick check of the time showed they needed to return. The shop would be opening soon, and they had customers scheduled. "We'll have to come back," Maya decided reluctantly, "but let's show these photos to Frank and see what he makes of them." They carefully retraced their steps, securing both concealed doors behind them. As they emerged into the shop, Maya's mind was racing with possibilities. The monitoring equipment suggested environmental concerns, but the secrecy and recent activity pointed to something more complex. The day passed in a blur of oil changes and brake repairs, but Maya found it difficult to focus, her thoughts repeatedly returning to the mysterious discovery beneath the neighboring building. During a brief lull in customers, She called Frank to describe what they'd found. River monitoring equipment makes sense, he confirmed after hearing her description. That whole area used to test groundwater for contamination from the manufacturing plant, but the recent activity is concerning. Those systems were supposed to be decommissioned years ago when the environmental remediation was completed. Could Riverfront be conducting unauthorized testing? Maya suggested. Possibly, or they could be covering up test results that would interfere with their development plans. Frank sounded troubled. We need to get an independent environmental assessment as soon as possible. Before they could discuss further, the shop door opened, admitting James Caldwell and Victoria Hargrove. They were accompanied by a third person, a stocky man in a business suit, whose alert posture and scanning gaze suggested security training. "Ms. Levinson," Caldwell called with forced joviality. "Hope we're not interrupting. I wanted to follow up on our conversation." Maya ended her call, squaring her shoulders as she faced the riverfront representatives. "Mr. Caldwell, I was just about to contact you. I've been considering your offer." Something flickered in Caldwell's expression. Satisfaction, perhaps, or relief. "Excellent. I'm sure we can come to an arrangement that benefits everyone. Before we discuss terms, I have a few questions," Maya said, maintaining a composed demeanor despite her racing heart. "Your interest in my property seems particularly focused. I'm curious why." Caldwell's smile tightened slightly. "As I explained, the corner location is ideal for our development plans. The visibility and river access make it a premium position." "Interesting," Maya nodded thoughtfully. "And would your interest change if you knew about certain features of the property? Structural elements beneath the surface, perhaps?" The reaction was subtle but unmistakable. A sharp glance between Caldwell and Hargrove, a slight tensing of the security man's posture. "I'm not sure what you're referring to," Caldwell replied smoothly, though his eyes had hardened. "Our structural engineers have assessed the general area thoroughly." "I see." Maya met his gaze steadily. "Then you wouldn't be interested in what I found beneath the shop floor? Or the connecting passages to neighboring properties? Or the monitoring equipment that someone has been maintaining quite recently?" The pretense of casual interest vanished instantly. Caldwell's expression became coldly calculating, while Victoria Hargrove's fingers tightened around her portfolio. "Ms. Levinson," Caldwell said, his voice now devoid of warmth, "I'd advise you to be very careful about spreading misinformation or interfering with legitimate business operations. Rumors about environmental concerns could constitute defamation if unfounded." The threat was thinly veiled, but Maya refused to be intimidated. "It's not a rumor if it's documented," she replied, gesturing toward her phone where Lily's photographs were stored. "I'm simply trying to understand the true value of my property before considering your offer." Victoria stepped forward. "Our offer is more than generous based on standard market valuation. If you're attempting to negotiate for more..." "I'm not negotiating," Maya interrupted firmly. "I'm investigating. There's a difference." Caldwell studied her for a long moment, reassessing. "You've been busy since acquiring this property, Ms. Levinson. More thorough than we anticipated. Perhaps we should discuss this matter more privately." He glanced pointedly at the customer waiting area where an elderly man was watching their interaction with undisguised interest. "I don't think that's necessary," Maya replied. "In fact, I've shared what I've found with several other property owners in the district. We're quite interested in understanding why these underground features would be so valuable to your development plans." The calculated revelation that she wasn't acting alone visibly unsettled Caldwell. His confidence faltered momentarily before his corporate mask slipped back into place. A collaborative approach. How community-minded. His tone made the observation sound like an accusation. Well, if you and your fellow property owners have concerns, we'd be happy to address them formally. Perhaps a meeting with our environmental compliance team? That would be helpful, Maya agreed. In the meantime, I'll need more time to consider your offer. It's a significant decision. Of course. Caldwell's smile didn't reach his eyes. But don't take too long. Market conditions change. Priorities shift. The opportunity before you now may not remain available indefinitely. After they departed, Maya locked the shop door and leaned against it, releasing a shaky breath. The confrontation had confirmed her suspicions. Riverfront knew about the underground network and considered it valuable enough to warrant their aggressive acquisition strategy. The question remained, why? That evening, the core group from the previous night's meeting gathered at Frank's auto shop after hours. Maya shared the photographs Lily had taken of the monitoring equipment and notebooks, while Frank spread out historical maps of the district on his workbench. Based on what you found and these old civil defense plans, Frank explained, tracing lines across the map, there appears to be an entire network of underground passages connecting at least 7 properties along the riverside. Originally designed for emergency evacuation during the Cold War, they were later repurposed for environmental monitoring when industrial contamination became a concern. But the official monitoring program ended 15 years ago, Carmen added, when the manufacturing plant cleanup was certified complete by the EPA. So why is someone still taking readings? Harriet asked, examining the notebook photographs, and using modern equipment. David Chen, who had been quietly studying the technical data, looked up with sudden understanding. These aren't just contamination readings, he said. Some of these measurements are for underground water flow rates and subsoil composition. They're surveying the entire underground structure of the Riverside area. For what purpose? Mr. Patel asked. Foundations, Maya realized. They need to understand the underground conditions before building their luxury high-rises and marina. These passages give them access to critical data without having to conduct obvious surveys that might raise questions. And if they found contamination issues, Harriet pressed, they could conceal them, David suggested grimly, manipulate the data to obtain building permits while minimizing their remediation costs. The implications were disturbing. Not just financial manipulation, but potentially endangering future residents and the river ecosystem if contamination issues remained unaddressed. We need proof, Frank said firmly. Suspicions aren't enough to stop their development plans. The environmental consultant I contacted can be here next week, Carmen reported, but that might be too late if more owners sell in the meantime. Maya thought about the notebook entries she'd photographed, the laptop connected to the monitoring equipment. The proof might already exist in their own data, she suggested. If we could access their readings, compare them to independent assessments. Breaking into their system would be illegal, Frank cautioned. We don't need to break in, Maya countered. We just need to continue the investigation we've already started, documenting what exists beneath our own properties. If we map the entire underground network and conduct our own environmental tests, we'll have legitimate data to compare against whatever Riverfront submits for their permits. The group agreed on a coordinated approach. Each property owner would thoroughly document their underground spaces and any connecting passages, while pooling resources for professional environmental testing. Meanwhile, they would research the official records of the previous remediation to establish baseline data. As the meeting dispersed, Maya felt a growing sense of purpose. What had begun as a personal investment, a fresh start for herself and Lily, had evolved into something much larger, protecting a community's heritage, ensuring environmental responsibility, and standing against corporate manipulation. The following days brought a flurry of activity. Maya and Lily systematically explored more of the tunnel network during off hours, discovering additional monitoring stations and gathering extensive documentation. Other business owners conducted similar investigations of their properties, sharing findings through a secure group chat Carmen had established. Meanwhile, Riverfront intensified their pressure tactics. 2 more property owners reported vandalism incidents. The local newspaper ran a prominently placed article about the economic benefits of the proposed development, with quotes from the mayor suggesting his support. Building inspectors suddenly appeared at several holdout businesses, citing minor violations that had previously been overlooked. Through it all, Maya's auto shop continued to thrive. Word had spread about her honest approach and transparent pricing, bringing a steady stream of customers from both the local community and summer residents. Lily's digital marketing strategies were proving remarkably effective, while Maya's mechanical skills earned genuine respect even from once skeptical competitors. "You've built something special here," Frank told her one evening as he helped troubleshoot an electrical issue with one of her diagnostic machines. "Not just a successful business, but a different kind of relationship with customers. People trust you." "That means everything to me," Maya admitted. "My mother always said that trust was the most valuable currency in the repair business, more important than fancy equipment or technical certifications." Frank nodded thoughtfully. Turner lost sight of that toward the end, got bitter about the changes in the industry, stopped communicating clearly with customers. That's why his business failed, not just the building issues. The observation resonated with Maya, despite all the challenges and mysteries surrounding her property. The core of her success remained simple: honest work, clear communication, and genuine care for customers' needs. The empty room beneath her shop had led to unexpected complications, but it was what she was building above ground that truly mattered. 1 week after their confrontation with Caldwell, the coalition of business owners gathered at Maya's shop. After hours, the independent environmental consultant Carmen had hired was present, along with a lawyer specializing in property and environmental law whom they had collectively retained. "Here's what we know," Maya began, standing beside a large map they had created of the underground network. "The tunnel system connects 8 properties along the riverside. 7 of these contain monitoring stations that were originally installed for the industrial cleanup project, but were supposed to be decommissioned 15 years ago. However," David Chen continued, "someone has been maintaining these stations and collecting data recently. Data that appears to include not just contamination levels, but structural information about the underground conditions." The environmental consultant, Dr. Elaine Foster, shared her preliminary findings. "Based on the samples we've collected from access points in the underground network, there are concerning levels of industrial solvents still present in the groundwater, not at crisis levels, but definitely requiring disclosure and remediation before any residential development could safely proceed." The lawyer, Mr. Abernathy, explained the legal implications. If Riverfront knew about these contamination issues and failed to disclose them in their permit applications, they would be in violation of multiple environmental regulations. Furthermore, their pressure tactics against property owners could constitute harassment and potentially racketeering if we can prove coordination. The group discussed next steps: formal complaints to regulatory agencies, a presentation to the town council, and public education about the environmental concerns. They would use their documentation of the underground network not as a weapon, but as evidence of the need for transparent, responsible development. As the meeting concluded, Frank raised his coffee mug in a toast to Maya Levinson, who came to save an auto shop and ended up saving an entire district. The simple acknowledgement brought tears to Maya's eyes. 6 weeks ago, she had arrived in Oakridge Valley as an outsider with a desperate gamble, a $700 investment in a dilapidated building that most considered worthless. Now she stood at the center of a community united in purpose, her expertise valued, her determination inspiring others. The empty room beneath her shop had held no NATO secrets, no classified documents, no dramatic revelations, just the mundane remnants of historical infrastructure that connected the district in ways both literal and metaphorical. Yet that empty space had catalyzed something far more valuable: the rediscovery of community strength, the power of collaborative action, and Maya's own capacity to lead through integrity rather than force. As everyone departed, Lily sidled up beside her mother. "So still think buying this place for $700 was crazy?" she asked with a knowing grin. Maya laughed, wrapping an arm around her daughter's shoulders. "Best money I ever spent, though not for the reasons I expected." "That's the thing about empty spaces," Lily said with surprising wisdom. "They're not really empty. They're just waiting to be filled with whatever you bring to them." Maya looked around her shop, at the clean service bays, the organized tools, the digital displays showing a full schedule for the coming week. Above, all she saw the photographs of satisfied customers she'd begun posting on the wall of trust near the entrance, tangible evidence of the relationship she was building. The empty underground room had turned out to hold no secrets, but the journey of discovering that fact had filled her life with something far more valuable: a community, a purpose, and the confirmation that sometimes the greatest treasures are not what we find buried in the past, but what we build together for the future. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.